Hello, everybody. Today, my personal narrative, I will be talking about the blind spots in support in higher education and the workforce for disabled individuals. It is more than likely that you have worked with or will work with somebody with a disability through the course of your educational and professional careers. Um, I will be talking about the percentage of students who have disabilities, how many of those students report their disabilities to their institutions, and then how many people with disabilities are unemployed. So, according to the Center of Educational Statistics, 19% of undergrad students and 12% of graduate students um, report having disabilities. However, only about a third of that population report their disabilities to their institutions. My partner graduated from UCSD with her bachelor's degree in, I believe, 2017. She got a nano engineering degree with a minor in math. She has severe ADHD, and she did not report this to the UCSD and get support for it. She wanted to, but when she did so, they wanted to assess her for ADHD. They wanted to charge her $3,000 for the assessment. She has already gone through assessment with her own doctors. She's had an ADHD diagnosis her entire life. And $3,000 on top of her tuition was not something that was feasible for her. So she decided not to disclose it and not to pursue accommodation for her disability. We're not even going to talk about the fact that that accommodation is lackluster and is, for the most part, only an extension on deadlines and tests, which, depending on your ADHD, may or may not be useful. So she finds herself in a third of the students who did not disclose. I have disclosed my disability to MiraCosta, and in that, I have found that oftentimes, which is unfortunate, I did not face this during my first term, but I'm on my third term, and I've had two teachers tell me that they won't accommodate my disability. It was particularly harsh during my summer course, where I was told my accommodation, a memory aid for oral exams, would be considered an unfair advantage, despite the fact that I forget words in English quite often. You won't, hopefully, you won't see it here because I'm well practiced. But in natural conversation, they come and go. So in a foreign language, despite the fact that I've been studying that language for 10 years, my brain may or may not decide to remember those words. So in memory aid, it's very much necessary. And then I've had other courses where the teacher has told me that my time accommodation is a detriment, which to an extent I understand, but when you tell that to somebody with autism and they go through a particularly tough week, such as this one where I had to lay my 20-year-old cat to rest and could have definitely used that extension, it gets pretty hard. And it makes you hesitant to actually use the accommodations that you've been guaranteed. And causes you to fall behind in your courses. So how does this reflect moving forward into out of the educational field and into career? Well, according to according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the unemployment rate for disabled peoples is twice that of the general population. That is a huge amount, especially when you consider the fact that a majority of disabled people are on some sort of benefit where they're not even in the workforce to begin with. So those of us who are in the workforce having twice as high unemployment rate is unacceptable. I'm back at school because I got laid off from a position, but they were fairly accommodating. Unfortunately, I had yet to disclose my disability to them, and they weren't very timely in their tasks, which threw me off of my tasks. I could not I could not accommodate for their tasks in what I needed to do and get done, especially with a lack of overtime at that particular company. And so I ended up getting laid off because of my disability ultimately. And while that is technically illegal, companies are going to do what companies are going to do. And people like me have very little ability to fight that. So it's not surprising that those of us trying to get work have a very difficult time finding jobs that will accommodate for us, and that there's twice as high unemployment rate amongst the disabled community. So, why does this matter to all of you? Well, in all likelihood, as I've said, many of you may be disabled, may work with people who are disabled, and throughout your educational and professional careers. And it is important to think of equity when moving through society. Now, sometimes we can try everything we can and people just don't fit in a certain role for whatever reason, and we can't be accommodating, and that's unfortunate. However, it is important that when you can be accommodating, to accommodate. If you are working an office job and it's something you can definitely do at home, and you have an employee who, for whatever reason, can't make it to the office, whether that's mobility aid, depression, or some other third thing, let them work from home. It makes no sense to have them work in the office when they could be working at home. COVID showed us that companies can accommodate a whole heck of a lot more than they actually do. And that's really important to think about. So, conclusion. Educational and institutions, I keep messing this part up. Oh well, this will have to do it. Educational institutions and employers need to do a better job of supporting disabled students and employees so that we can continue to be productive members of society. Telling autistic students that they can't use their accommodations for your class very often might mean that when they fall behind because they've had to put their 20-year-old cat down and hand wash their clothes in their sink instead of doing their homework because they can't afford their washing machine, they will hesitate to reach out and use said accommodations. After all, is that grief a good enough excuse? Thank you.